Welcome back, Book Fiends, to Wicked Good Books, a channel dedicated to books and things book adjacent. My name is Nick, and I'm the host of this channel. Bit of a confession to make. I've been trying to film this video for like 2 months now. This is my most anticipated book releases of 2022. I have no one else to blame other than myself and maybe Elden Ring. But we're doing it. There's a lot of books on this list, so I'm going to jump right into it. We have Temple of No God by H.M. Long. This came out February 1st of 2022. This is I wouldn't really call it an indirect sequel to Hall of Smoke. The author has said on her Instagram that you don't need to read them in any order. Now, Temple of No God has a very special place in the Wicked Good Books community's heart, as Hall of Smoke was our very first buddy read as a Patreon Discord server for the Wicked Good Books Patreon. And I'm thinking that next month in April, judging by the poll on Patreon, I think Temple of No God is going to win it. So that'll be kind of cool, kind of a homecoming, making a full circle. Reading Temple of No God by H.M. Long, having started the whole server and started the whole Discord, or at least starting the Patreon with Hall of Smoke. I think it's kind of poetic in a way, so very excited about that. It does seem like it's going to be a little more action-packed, at least to me. Then the first one had a lot of action in it, but it was more of a character-driven, quiet moments, some really dark moments too, and there was definitely some action throughout, but I feel like this one seems like Hef's got a little more power and a little more influence. The first one almost had like a Revenant vibe. Now, if you like God of War or Vikings, or you just enjoy Norse mythology-inspired fantasy, I think you really enjoy H.M. Long's writing. One of the main things as a server we all sort of agreed on was how atmospheric their first book felt. So I'm really looking forward to seeing if any of that transfers over to this follow-up to Hall of Smoke. But yeah, very much excited for this one. Looking forward to reading it with the server. Next on the list, we got Gallon by V.E. Schwab. Came out March 1st. I actually picked up a copy a couple days ago. Very much looking forward to this one. I do believe it's YA. I think it's young adult. This one seemed more my vibe. I'm a sucker for haunted houses. If I could be on one of those ghost hunter shows as a guest, I'd probably be terrified, but I would love to do it. And this one just seems right on my alley. One of my favorite shows of all time is The Haunting of Hill House, the newer one, both Bly Manor and Hill House. And while this one's not exactly like that, it just kind of gives me that same... It ticks those similar boxes. This one's pitched as, and I don't always like going through what's pitched or comparisons, because sometimes that can be subjective, but if you say the Secret Guard meets Crimson Peak, I'm already there, because Crimson Peak, absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite gothic horror movies, and if you put it on anything, especially with the haunted house vibes, I'm there. So next on the list also came out March 1st, Sundial by Katrina Ward. Now, I didn't read her most recent book before this, Last House on Neela Street, I think it's called. But this one, both with the amazing acid neon color, just very 80s retro vibe, just always sticks out to me. Big fan of retro wave and chill hop. Huge fan of that aesthetic. As many of you know, Dance with the Dead is like on the top of my chill hop playlist. But this one, let's see what it's about. You can't escape what's in your blood. All Rob wanted was a normal life. She almost got it too. A husband, 2 kids, a nice house in the suburbs, but Rob fears for her oldest daughter, Kaylee, who collects tiny bones and whispers to imaginary friends. Rob sees a darkness in Callie, one that reminds her too much of her family she left behind. The mother and daughter embark on a dark desert journey to the past in the hopes of redeeming their future. I always find myself invested in the stories where parents or families are going back to their hometown to try and rekindle a relationship or bury a hatchet of sorts, and it seems like that's sort of where this one's going. I do like that it takes place in the Mojave Desert as a horror story or horror genre thriller. I think this actually pitches a psychological thriller. That's not a setting we get to see very often, so I'm really excited to see how nature plays a part, if at all, in this story. But I heard great things about it, and I believe it's super short too. Next on the list by Tara Sim, we have City of Dusk. Now, this one I actually got an arc for. I'm still currently reading it. I have so much on my TBR. It's kind of keeps falling behind. But the main thing that drew me in on this one is the artwork. The cover art is beautiful. It's the aesthetic that I look for, and the fact that it's got necromancers in it, which, if you know anything about me, it's one of my favorite things of all time. So it does seem like this one's inspired by Loch Tomb, or just gives me those vibes. I've seen some of the artwork that the author has been posting, and just very much right up my alley. Can't wait to get my hands on this one physically and look at the map and all the cool artwork inside of it. But it does seem like it's these 4 houses that operate out of the city. Each of them has like a different specialty, and they all vying for this power essentially. And that's the trope that I always fall for. Set in a gorgeous world of bone and shadow magic, of vengeful gods and defiant chosen ones, the city of Dusk follows the 4 heirs of 4 noble houses, each gifted with a divine power, as they form a tenuous alliance to keep their kingdom from descending into a realm-shattering war. I can say, what I've read of this book so far, and I've only read the first 5 chapters on the arc that I got from NetGalley, really liking it so far. The pacing's super fast. The character banter is very witty. It reminds me a little bit of like Mistborn and Locked Tomb and Gideon the Ninth, so very much looking forward to seeing where this goes and if it can hold my interest the whole way through. I love that the author is super active on social media. She posts a lot of cool fan art. I'm always a sucker for that kind of content from authors and from publishers and from fans. Next we have Daughter of Redwinter, another first book in a new series, a fantasy series. This is by Ed McDonald. This is the Redwinter Chronicles, #1. Comes out June 28th, 2022. Another one for my birthday month. I won't even say much about the plot for this book, what I've read. The cover just catches me. It's got skeletons on it. It's got a really cool aesthetic that kind of reminds me of Dragon Age. It could actually be the same artist. I'm going to look that up, and if it is, I'll put it up here on the screen. But it reminds me of the tarot cards from Dragon Age Inquisition, and that's probably why it speaks to me so much. Rain can see and speak to the dead, a gift that comes with a death sentence. All of her life she has hidden, lied, and run to save her skin, and she's made some spectacularly bad choices along the way. But as a rare act of kindness, rescuing an injured woman in the snow that becomes the most dangerous decision Rain has ever made. Because the woman is fleeing from Redwinter, the fortress monastery of the Drelin, warrior magicians who answer to no king, and who will stop at nothing to reclaim what she has stolen. A battle, a betrayal, and a horrific revelation force Rain to enter the citadel and live among the Drelin. Drelin? She soon finds that her secret ability could be the key to saving an entire nation, though she might have to die to make it happen. Always a big fan of necromancy in stories, whether it be science fiction or fantasy or sci-fantasy. Love when characters can speak to the dead. It's one of my favorite spells in D&D 5e is Speak with the Dead, or Commune with the Dead. I think it's really cool. It's a power that I wish I had in real life. I think you can do some really fun things with it. You can have some really powerful moments with it. As we saw in Justice of Kings by Richard Swan, just kind of sneak that one in there. But if you've seen Sixth Sense, one of my favorite films, one of my favorite elements of that movie is speaking to the dead, and to have it come into a fantasy story, just immediately has my interest. All right, moving right along, coming out July 12th, 2022 is What Moves the Dead. A lot of dead things on this list. There might be a theme for the books that I really enjoy. Hopefully it doesn't say too much about me, but by T. Kingfisher. I just read The Hollow Places last year by this author and absolutely loved it. Great Area X by Jeff Vandermeer vibes, but it still felt like its own thing. It really freaked me out. There's a couple of scenes actually in that book that just kind of grossed me out in a cool and awesome way. In the way that you want to be grossed and freaked out when you go into a horror movie or a horror book. And sometimes, especially in the written word, it doesn't always work. It doesn't always have to be the author's ability. Sometimes it's just the way things are described or the image is conjuring. It's just not enough to spook me out. But that book really got to me. And the cover for this one is absolutely gorgeous. It's, again, a lot of these covers actually on these books are just absolutely stunning, and some of the first things that stuck out to me when I saw them. But even if I hadn't read this author before, the fact that this is a reimagining and a retelling of one of my absolute favorite Edgar Allan Poe stories, The Fall of the House of Usher, that alone has my interest and has me invested in purchasing this book and checking out for myself. I do believe that Netflix is coming out with a TV show adaptation from Mike Flanagan, I believe. That same director is going to be doing a film or miniseries for The Fall of the House of Usher. So the fact that T. Kingfisher is going to take a whack at one of my favorite stories, and just already am invested. I don't need to know anything else about the story. When Alex Easton, a retired soldier, receives word that their childhood friend Madeline Usher is dying, they race to the ancestral home of the Ushers in the remote countryside of Ruritania. What they find there is a nightmare of fungal growths and possessed wildlife surrounding a dark, pulsing lake. Madeline sleepwalks and speaks in strange voices at night, and her brother Roderick is consumed with a mysterious malady of the nerves. Aided by a redoubtable British mycologist and a baffled American doctor, Alex must unravel the secret of the House of Usher before it consumes them all. So, Yet again, huge Area X Southern Reach trilogy vibes, Jeff Vandermeer series. Now, I don't think that's intentional, but big fan of fungus horror. It sounds awful, but The Last of Us, one of my favorite video games of all time, has a lot to do with that. So taking that and putting Fall of the House of Usher on top of it, just like really awesome combination. And I almost said very topical. That's bad. That's a bad pun. I'm going to keep this in at the end for my daughter because she loves puns. Jesus. Next we have by R.F. Kuang, Babel. It's actually called Babel, or The Necessity of Violence, an Arcane History of the Oxford Translators Revolution, which is already okay, R.F. Rebecca, you've got me. I'm there. The title alone, I'm committed. I'm not the biggest Poppy War fan. I read the first 2 books. I do plan on finishing it because I hate not completing things I started when I'm that far into it. It's decent, and I love that people love it. It's just not really for me. But the premise for this story, the Dark Academia vibes, just speaks to me on a different level. And having just read several Dark Academia books like Ninth House and started Atlas 6 last year, very much looking forward to adding another one into my repertoire of Dark Academia books to consume. I actually also read Vita Nostra last year, which is amazing and like a little sleeper hit for me that I was not expecting to dig so much. And I don't think this will be similar to that, but I've had like a streak of every Dark Academia book I've read in the past year I've really enjoyed, and this one seems no different. In 1828, Robin Swift, orphaned by Calla and Canton, is brought to London by the mysterious Professor Lovell. There, he trains for years in Latin, ancient Greek, and Chinese, all in preparation for the day he'll enroll in the Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, also known as Babel. Or Babel. I say Babel. I always go by Mumford & Sons' album Babel because he says Babel in the song, and I always seem to go that one. I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Babel, but I'm going to say Babel. I'll probably say both, so just work with me. It's Babel, Babel, you get it. Babel is the world's center for translation and, more importantly, magic. Silverworking, the art of manifesting the meaning lost in translation using enchanted silver bars, has made the British unparalleled in power, as its knowledge serves the Empire's quest for colonization. So, yet again, it seems like Kuang is going for some deep themes rooted in our world, echoing into a fantasy setting. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what she does with that one. I follow her on social media. She's very active and talkative about this series. The cover is absolutely gorgeous. Love me a good black and white sketch design like that. I think it's really eye-catching, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this book is, and if I enjoy it more than Poppy War. I think I probably will. We'll see. Moving right along, next we have Pinata by Leopoldo Goat. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. That comes out November 1st, 2022, towards the end of the year. Described as Head Full of Ghosts meets Hereditary, which I haven't read Head Full of Ghosts. I've heard great things about it. It's actually on my list, but I have seen Hereditary, and that movie deeply unsettles me. Even thinking about it bothers me. Excellent movie, though, by Ari Aster. One of my favorite new or modern horror movies that's come out in the last decade. But that alone has my interest because I love Hereditary, so I'm very curious to see how that works in book form. This one does take place in Mexico, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that setting and that environment is explored in this book in horror. Similar to Sundial, I love a good, unique setting for horror that we don't get, at least I don't read that enough of. Or see in film, so anytime I can get it in a book form especially, I'm down. Winding down the end of this list, we got Bonds of Chaos, Threadlight, book number 3 by Zach Argyle. This comes out August 25th, 2022. Bonds of Chaos is the final installment of the Threadlight trilogy, which begins with the multi-award winning Voice of War. I've read the first book. I'm kind of holding off on the second one because I kind of want to read them like closer together, back to back. They are shorter, at least compared to what I usually read, so I can kind of fly through them. Really enjoyed my time reading Voice of War, and I've only heard great things about the sequel. The covers are absolutely stunning for all 3 of these books. So hats off to Zach and the artist he commissions for these. This artwork is absolutely amazing. It catches my eye. Premise sounds super cool. I don't want to give too much away because this is the 3rd book in the series. I don't want to say things that might give away for the first 2 books, but essentially, when all is lost, the heralds return. The world embraced them as gods and saviors, but there are some who know the truth. The heralds are not what they seem. That's all I'm going to read. It does seem like we have some returning characters coming back in at least the first book that I know of, but very much looking forward to seeing how how that story concludes, as well as following Zach's work in the future and see what he does next. Next, we have book 1 of The Empire of the Wolf, The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. Now, this already came out last month, February 22nd to be exact. Now, I actually am not going to talk about this one too much. I do have a review on the community tab for Wicked Good Books, so you can read it in full, where I discuss my feelings about this book as well as my Goodreads. Really enjoyed my time reading. I actually got an ARC from NetGalley and was able to read it a few months ago. Really enjoyed my time reading it. Really unique perspective. Become one of my favorite ways for at least a fantasy story to be told inside fantasy is in recollection. Is a character in the future telling the story to us in the past, and there's just little like riffs they can do that make it just compelling. And I feel like sometimes it can be cheap and have some cheap shots, but it really worked well in Justice of Kings. And yet again, another book that had necromancy. I feel like there's a theme of necromancy in my favorite books. That's new. Is it? I don't know. Coming down to my top 3 most anticipated releases of 2022. Thank you for making it this far in the video. I promise I'm going to try and cut this down as best I can. But there's a lot of great books coming out this year. This was technically a 3-page document originally, and I had to cut it down to just, I think it's still 3 pages, but a lot less books. But we have The Spear Cuts Through by Simon Jimenez. Now, I read Vanished Birds about almost 2 years ago now, and absolutely cherish that book. I love that book. I think about it all the time, which for me is a hallmark of a great book, but also an impactful book. It's a book that I take with me wherever I go on the inside. And I just can't wait to see what he does next. And the fact that this is a fantasy book that just totally catches my eye. Can't wait to find out more about it, but let's talk about it. So, 2 warriors shepherd an ancient god across a broken land to end the tyrannical reign of a royal family in this new epic fantasy from author of The Vanished Birds. Both a sweeping adventure story and an intimate exploration of identity, legacy, and belonging, The Spear Cuts Through Water is an ambitious and profound saga that will transport and transform you and is like nothing you've ever read before. Now, normally I would consider that a very, that's hype. That's some hype praise right there, but Vanished Birds did just that. It took sci-fi to another level, to like that fiction lit level. Now, that's not saying that science fiction can't do that normally, but there's something about Vanished Birds that just was just top tier for me. It took all those themes that sci-fi can touch on and just times them by 100. Just full throttle, super profound, and I can't wait to see what he does with fantasy. Now, it comes out August 30th, 2022. That does seem like 1,000 years away. I just love the concept of these 2 shepherds shepherding an ancient god, and it makes you think, is that real, or is this more like in their perspective? They think it's a god. Like, there's a lot there that could be happening. I'm very much looking forward to. Last 2 on this list, we got Lightbringer by Pierce Brown. I can't say anything about this book because I just can't. Right? We know, we follow the remaining characters of the Red Rising squad in the final book of the 2nd trilogy. Dark Age was a brutal, beautiful, and profound book that I read last year. I absolutely loved it. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and I can't wait / am extremely nervous to read, to see how Pierce Brown ends this epic saga that he has created with the Red Rising series. If you've not read Red Rising Book 1, highly recommend it. The audiobooks for all of them are amazing, especially for Iron Gold and Dark Age. Pierce Brown's one of my favorite authors, and this series means a lot to me, so I am very much looking forward to Lightbringer, and I'm really hoping it doesn't get pushed into 2023, because what better way to spend Christmas Eve than reading the final book in the Red Rising series, or at least the 2nd trilogy, and crying myself to sleep. That sounds like a great Christmas Eve to me. And with that, we have arrived at my most anticipated release of the year, and that is, you guessed it, Nona the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This comes out September 13th, 2022. I am just praying to the elder gods, to the deep ones, that I can receive an arc of this book. Even though if I get it, I almost feel weird reading it early, because I do want to read it with all my friends, all the members of the Locked Tomb community. All my podcasters and fellow Unlocked Tomb listeners for our Wicked Good Books podcast, The Unlocked Tomb. Very much looking forward to this book. Can't say too much about it. I'm going to record a separate line here, me just kind of reading through what the book's about. Her city is under siege. The zombies are coming back, and all Nona wants is a birthday party. In many ways, Nona is like other people. She lives with her family, has a job at her local school, and loves walks on the beach and meeting new dogs. But Nona's not like other people. 6 months ago, she woke up in a stranger's body, and she's afraid she might have to give it back. The whole city is falling to pieces. A monstrous blue sphere hangs on the horizon, ready to tear the planet apart. Blood of Eden forces have surrounded the last cohort facility and wait for the Emperor Undying to come calling. Their leaders want Nona to be the weapon that will save them from the Nine Houses. Nona would prefer to live an ordinary life with people she loves, with Pyrrha and Camilla and Palamedes, but she also knows that nothing lasts forever. In each night, Nona dreams of a woman with a skull-painted face. The Locked Tomb series is my favorite series of all time, and I'm very much looking forward to getting this third of 4 total books in this series. That was supposed to be only 3 originally. The plot seems hilarious and very much Locked Tomb. Tommy Arnold's artwork is just absolutely stunning. I really can't wait to own prints of all 3, eventually 4 covers of this series. And yeah, I can't wait for this book, guys. I really hope I get an arc for it. Once I do, it just, the only thing that can defeat me playing Elden Ring and, pulling the e-brake on Elden Ring is if I get an arc for Nona the Ninth. I really am praying to the Elder Ones I can get a copy of one. But that's going to be it, guys. My most anticipated releases of 2022. What are some of the books that you're most excited about coming out this year? I'd love to hear about them in the comments. If there are any crossovers or any of these books on your list too, let me know. I'd love to discuss it with you. And as always, guys, we'll see you on the next one. Stay wicked.